Mace Windu's duel with Darth Sidious in Star Wars, Episode I. Revenge of the Sith is a defining moment in the saga, one that continues to spark intense debate among Star Wars fans. The dramatic confrontation between the two characters raises complex questions about the nature of the Force, the power dynamics within the Jedi Order, and the lengths to which Sith Lord Darth Sidious would go to solidify his influence over Anakin Skywalker. Fans have long argued over whether Mace truly overpowered Sidious, or if Sidious feigned defeat to manipulate Anakin. This battle is more than a simple lightsaber duel. It is a symbol of the conflict between light and dark, of moral complexity, and of the constant struggle for balance within the galaxy. Mace Windu is one of the most powerful Jedi Masters, respected by his peers and feared by his enemies. A man of principle and strength, Mace was not only a skilled warrior but also held the esteemed position of Master of the Order, a title that denoted his status and wisdom within the Jedi Council. His role as Master of the Order reflected his deep understanding of the Force and the responsibility he felt toward maintaining peace and justice throughout the galaxy. Mace's character is marked by an unyielding moral compass and a dedication to the Jedi Code, which made him uniquely suited to the challenges and complexities of his position. However, what truly set Mace apart was his mastery of Vaapad, a rare and dangerous form of lightsaber combat that gave him an edge against dark side users in ways other Jedi could not achieve. Vaapad, the seventh form of lightsaber combat, was developed by Mace Windu himself and is a manifestation of his ability to control both light and dark energy. Unlike other Jedi fighting styles, Vaapad is inherently aggressive, allowing the user to channel the dark energy of their opponent and reflect it back, almost as if creating a feedback loop. This technique requires extreme mental discipline, as it involves walking a razor-thin line between the light and dark sides of the Force. Most Jedi would shy away from such a style, fearing that it could pull them toward the dark side. But Mace had such a strong will and mastery over himself that he was able to utilize Vaapad without succumbing to the darkness. In his duel with Darth Sidious, Mace's use of Vaapad played a crucial role, allowing him to counter Sidious's dark side-fueled attacks with equal ferocity. By drawing upon Sidious's own aggression, Mace was able to hold his ground in a way that few other Jedi could have managed. Darth Sidious, also known as Emperor Palpatine, was a master of the dark side, skilled in deception, manipulation, and the intricate power plays that allowed him to shape the galaxy from behind the scenes. Sidious was not just a powerful Sith, he was arguably the most cunning and influential one the galaxy had ever seen. He had hidden his identity for years, operating within the heart of the Republic and manipulating events to orchestrate his rise to power. His skill in the Force was unparalleled, particularly his ability to conceal his presence from the Jedi Council, despite operating under their noses as Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. This ability to remain hidden speaks to his skill in Force concealment, which he used to keep the Jedi unaware of his intentions, even as he drove them toward destruction. Sidious's powers extended far beyond lightsaber combat. He was adept in the use of Force lightning, telekinesis, and other dark side techniques that he wielded with terrifying efficiency. These powers, combined with his intellect and manipulative prowess, made Sidious a threat unlike any the Jedi had faced. When Sidious and Mace finally clashed, the Sith Lord unleashed his full might, attacking with a level of aggression and speed designed to overwhelm his opponent. For Sidious, this was not merely a test of strength, it was a defining battle in his long-term plan to eliminate the Jedi Order and secure his control over the galaxy. Sidious's approach was calculated and ruthless, intending to end the fight quickly and decisively. However, Mace Windu's use of Vaapad presented a unique challenge to Sidious's onslaught. With his ability to counter Sidious's attacks, Mace forced the Dark Lord into a prolonged duel, something Sidious rarely experienced. Normally, Sidious's speed and power would be enough to subdue even the most formidable opponents, but Mace's mastery of Vaapad allowed him to keep pace with Sidious, matching his fury with equal intensity. The duel between Mace Windu and Darth Sidious reached a crescendo as the two warriors pushed each other to the limits of their abilities. For Mace, this confrontation was not just a battle but a chance to prevent the dark side from fully consuming the galaxy. Every move he made was deliberate, grounded in his deep-seated commitment to justice and the Jedi Code. Mace's intention was clear. He aimed to end Sidious's threat to the Republic and prevent the Sith Lord from continuing his insidious influence over the galaxy. As the fight wore on, it appeared that Mace was gaining the upper hand, a feat that highlighted his skill and determination. Mace was able to disarm Sidious, pushing him to the edge and leaving him seemingly helpless. This moment, when Sidious was unarmed and on his knees, marked a turning point, one that suggested Mace had indeed overpowered the Sith Lord. However, at that crucial moment, Anakin Skywalker arrived. His presence added an unpredictable element to the battle, one that Sidious quickly seized upon. Anakin, already conflicted and manipulated by Sidious's promises of power and a way to save Padme, was vulnerable to the Sith Lord's influence. As Mace prepared to strike the final blow, Sidious played on Anakin's fears and desires, feigning weakness and pleading for his life. Whether Sidious's apparent vulnerability was genuine or a strategic ploy is a question that continues to divide fans. Some argue that Sidious allowed himself to be disarmed, knowing that Anakin's loyalty could be swayed by a display of weakness. By appearing helpless, Sidious pushed Anakin closer to the edge. Knowing that his attachment to Padme and his mistrust of the Jedi Council would lead him to act impulsively. Anakin's intervention was the deciding factor in the battle, as he ultimately chose to protect Sidious, betraying Mace in the process. Anakin's strike against Mace was not just a physical blow. It was a symbolic choice, a decision to embrace the dark side and reject the Jedi Order's teachings. By intervening, Anakin solidified his path toward becoming Darth Vader, aligning himself with Sidious and sealing the fate of the Jedi Order. Mace's defeat was as much a result of the darkness within Anakin as it was a product of Sidious's manipulation. The moment reveals the tragic vulnerability within the Jedi Order, as even their most powerful members were susceptible to the pull of the dark side through indirect means. The duel between Mace Windu and Darth Sidious, culminating in Anakin's intervention, represents one of the most tragic turning points in the Star Wars saga. In that moment, Mace, who had fought his entire life to uphold justice and the principles of the Jedi Order, was brought down not only by the direct force of Sidious's power, but also by the betrayal of a fellow Jedi, Anakin Skywalker. The significance of this betrayal cannot be overstated, as it marked the unraveling of the Jedi Order from within. Anakin's decision to side with Sidious was a powerful affirmation of the Sith's victory over the Jedi, symbolizing the extent of Sidious's influence and his ability to corrupt even the most dedicated Jedi apprentice. This fateful encounter underscores the deeper themes that George Lucas wove throughout the Star Wars saga: the tension between light and dark, the complexities of loyalty, and the vulnerabilities that exist within all individuals, regardless of their strength in the Force. Mace Windu's use of Vaapad, for instance, highlights these themes profoundly. Vaapad allowed Mace to engage with the dark side without being overtaken by it, a skill that required immense self-control and discipline. However, even Vaapad's power was not enough to shield Mace from the broader machinations of Sidious, who exploited the weaknesses within the Jedi Order and Anakin's personal fears. This dual attack, one physical, one psychological, was the ultimate demonstration of Sidious's genius, for he recognized that he didn't need to directly overpower every Jedi. He merely needed to create divisions and mistrust that would weaken them from the inside. The question of whether Mace could have actually defeated Sidious if Anakin had not intervened is a contentious one. Some fans argue that Sidious's apparent vulnerability was a calculated deception. From this perspective, Sidious may have intentionally allowed Mace to gain the upper hand in order to lure Anakin into making a definitive choice. By feigning weakness, Sidious created a moral dilemma that played directly into Anakin's inner turmoil. Sidious knew that Anakin's loyalties were conflicted, torn between his duties to the Jedi and his desperate need to protect Padme from a death he had foreseen in his visions. Sidious's manipulation was so skillful that it made Anakin's betrayal seem like the only solution to his problems. If Sidious's vulnerability was indeed an act, then Mace's apparent victory was a carefully engineered setup designed to trap Anakin in a decision he would forever regret. On the other hand, there is compelling evidence that Mace genuinely overpowered Sidious, at least temporarily. The nature of Vaapad meant that Mace could channel Sidious's own darkness against him, creating an intense feedback loop that left Sidious vulnerable. This technique allowed Mace to confront Sidious on nearly equal terms, pushing the Sith Lord into a defensive position that he rarely experienced. The fact that Mace disarmed Sidious is significant, as it demonstrated that even the Dark Lord's considerable powers were not infallible. In this interpretation, Mace's strength in the Force and his mastery of Vaapad proved sufficient to overcome Sidious in a direct confrontation, showing that the Jedi, even in their diminished state, were still a formidable threat to the Sith. However, the arrival of Anakin shifted the battle from one of strength and skill to one of psychological manipulation. Sidious's true mastery lay not only in his lightsaber abilities or his command of the dark side, but in his unparalleled talent for exploiting the weaknesses of those around him. Recognizing that Anakin was both his most dangerous adversary and his most valuable potential ally, Sidious orchestrated the situation to create a scenario in which Anakin felt compelled to act. By framing Mace as the aggressor, Sidious subtly portrayed the Jedi Master as someone willing to break the Jedi code for the sake of expediency. Sidious's cries for mercy were carefully calculated to appeal to Anakin's conflicted sense of justice and to further his disillusionment with the Jedi, who he felt had been hypocritical and manipulative in their treatment of him. In a way, Sidious used Mace's righteousness against him, positioning him as the embodiment of the Jedi's rigidity and unwillingness to compromise. Anakin's decision to betray Mace ultimately stemmed from his belief that the Jedi could not offer him what he sought. Haunted by visions of Padme's death, Anakin was willing to go to any lengths to prevent it, including allying with a Sith Lord who had been the Jedi's greatest enemy. Mace's insistence that Sidious was too dangerous to live, combined with Sidious's portrayal of the Jedi as a corrupt institution seeking power for themselves, was the final push Anakin needed to make his fateful choice. In that single act, he cemented his transformation into Darth Vader, a name synonymous with the destruction of the Jedi Order and the spread of darkness across the galaxy. The consequences of Mace Windu's defeat were far-reaching, not only because they marked the fall of a great Jedi Master, but also because they symbolized the triumph of the Sith. Sidious's ability to turn Anakin against the Jedi was a testament to his understanding of human nature and his ability to manipulate the emotions of others to achieve his goals. With Anakin now committed to the dark side, Sidious could proceed with his plan to eliminate the Jedi Order and establish the Galactic Empire. The battle between Mace and Sidious was therefore more than a mere lightsaber duel. It was the culmination of years of planning and manipulation on Sidious's part, as he set the stage for a new era of Sith dominance. The duel between Mace and Sidious, and the betrayal by Anakin, also exposed the limitations of the Jedi Order. Despite their power and wisdom, the Jedi were ultimately unable to protect themselves from internal corruption and the subtle influence of the Sith. Their adherence to tradition and their reluctance to adapt left them vulnerable to Sidious's schemes. Mace Windu, with his rigid commitment to the Jedi Code, represented both the strengths and the weaknesses of the Order. His mastery of Vaapad was a symbol of his strength, but his inability to foresee Anakin's betrayal and his rigid belief in the Code ultimately contributed to his downfall. In retrospect, Mace's death was symbolic of the Jedi's larger failure to adapt to the changing political and social landscape of the Republic. The Jedi's focus on maintaining control and their rigid interpretation of the Force left them ill-equipped to deal with a threat as multifaceted as Darth Sidious. Mace's use of Vaapad, while powerful, was also a reflection of the Jedi's desperation in their final days. It was a technique born out of necessity, a style that drew upon the dark side without embracing it fully. This reliance on such a technique suggested that even the Jedi recognized their need to adopt a more aggressive approach in the face of growing darkness. However, by the time Mace confronted Sidious, it was too late to save the Jedi Order from the consequences of its own rigidity and lack of foresight. Mace Windu's defeat also emphasizes the tragic nature of the Jedi's fall. His final moments were a testament to his strength, his skill, and his unwavering commitment to justice, but they were also a reminder of the Jedi's limitations. Mace's death, brought about by both physical defeat and moral betrayal, encapsulates the ultimate vulnerability of the Jedi Order, their inability to recognize and address the internal conflicts that would ultimately lead to their downfall. As one of the Jedi's strongest and most dedicated members, Mace's fall symbolizes the end of an era and the beginning of the Sith's ascendancy. In the end, the duel between Mace Windu and Darth Sidious stands as one of the most iconic moments in Star Wars, not only for its intensity but for its deeper implications. The battle is a powerful exploration of the conflict between light and dark, between order and chaos, and between the past and the future. It illustrates the limitations of even the most powerful Jedi and the cunning of the Sith, who were able to exploit those limitations to bring about the destruction of their enemies. Whether Mace could have defeated Sidious under different circumstances is ultimately a question that may never be answered. However, the legacy of their duel endures as a reminder of the complex, often tragic nature of the Star Wars universe, and the fragile balance that defines the eternal struggle between good and evil.